Commander Jake Morrison stood in the observation room, his eyes fixed on the holographic display floating before him. The display showed thousands of alien ships moving through space, their routes mapped across the galaxy like glowing threads in the darkness. For 30 years, humanity had watched these ships. For 30 years, Earth had remained silent. Jake pressed a button on his console and the image changed. Now he could see the Galactic Council chambers, a massive structure orbiting a distant star. The room was filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated in the air or crawled across the walls. They were talking about trade routes, about wars in distant sectors, about 1,000 things that had nothing to do with Earth. That was exactly how humanity wanted it. Dr. Lisa Bennett entered the room carrying a data tablet. She looked tired. Lisa always looked tired these days. She had spent the last 3 decades listening to alien languages, translating their words and learning their secrets. "Another interesting transmission," she said, handing Jake the tablet. He read the translation quickly. A council diplomat was discussing Earth in casual conversation. The words made Jake's jaw tighten. The alien had called humans barely evolved creatures who were too primitive to understand the complexity of galactic civilization. It was not the first time Jake had read such words. It would not be the last. "They still think we're idiots," Lisa said, sitting down heavily in a chair. "They've been saying things like this for years." Jake nodded slowly. "Let them think that. It's safer this way." 30 years ago, an alien probe had entered Earth's solar system. The probe was old and damaged, but it contained technology far beyond anything humans had created. It also contained information about the Galactic Council, a massive organization of hundreds of alien species that controlled most of the known galaxy. Earth's governments had faced a choice. They could announce humanity's presence to the galaxy and ask to join the Council, or they could stay hidden and learn everything they could about these aliens before revealing themselves. They chose silence. Admiral Frank Carson walked into the observation room. He was an old man now, but he still moved with military precision. Frank had been a young officer when the first probe arrived. Now he commanded Earth's entire hidden defense fleet. "Status report," he said. Jake gestured to the holographic display. "The Council is planning another expansion into the outer sectors. They're arguing about which species gets to claim the mining rights on some asteroid fields about 300 light-years from here." "And Earth?" Frank asked, still listed as a protected primitive world. "They're not allowed to interfere with us under their own laws. We're like a nature preserve to them." Lisa laughed bitterly. "More like a zoo. I've been reading their anthropological reports about us. They think we're fascinating in the way humans find monkeys fascinating." Frank's expression darkened. "Have they made any moves toward our system?" "No," Jake said. "We're too far out from their major routes. Too insignificant to bother with. They have thousands of worlds more interesting than ours. That was Earth's greatest advantage. The Sol system was located in a quiet arm of the galaxy, far from the Council's main territories. While aliens fought wars and built empires near the galactic center, Earth sat in peaceful isolation, watching and learning. But that isolation had come at a cost. For 30 years, humanity had listened to the Council's communications. For 30 years they had heard the insults, the dismissive comments, the casual contempt. The Council considered humans primitive. They laughed at human music and art. They mocked human attempts at technology. They saw Earth as a backward world full of simple creatures who would never amount to anything. Jake had read thousands of intercepted messages. He had heard alien diplomats joke about humans. He had watched Council scientists present papers describing humanity as intellectually limited and evolutionarily stagnant. Every word had been carefully documented and stored in Earth's databases. "The United Earth government is meeting tomorrow," Frank said. "They're going to debate the silence policy again." Lisa looked up sharply. "Are they thinking about making contact?" "Some of them are," Frank admitted. "There's a faction that believes we've learned enough. They want to announce our presence and demand a seat at the Council table." Jake shook his head. "We're not ready. Our technology is better than it was 30 years ago, but we're still decades behind the major Council species. If we reveal ourselves now, we'll be negotiating from a position of weakness." "Agreed," Frank said. "But the politicians are getting impatient. They don't like being insulted. Neither do I, for that matter." The three of them stood in silence for a moment, watching the holographic display. Alien ships moved through space, completely unaware that human eyes were watching their every move. Completely unaware that every transmission they sent was being intercepted and translated. Completely unaware that the primitive species they mocked was learning all their secrets. "How long do we wait?" Lisa asked quietly. Frank turned to look at her. "Until we're ready. Until we can stand as equals. Until we can look them in the eye and make them understand that they were wrong about us," Jake added. "Until we have enough strength that they can't dismiss us or push us around. We get one chance at this. One first impression. We can't waste it," Lisa nodded slowly. "I hope the government sees it that way." Over the next few days, Jake watched the political debates with growing concern. Many Earth leaders were angry about the Council's attitude toward humanity. They wanted to act, to announce Earth's presence, to demand respect, but others urged patience. They pointed to the secret shipyards being built in the asteroid belt. They talked about the new weapon systems being tested on the dark side of the moon. They reminded everyone that humanity's greatest advantage was surprise. In the end, the vote was close, but the silence policy continued. Earth would remain hidden. Humanity would keep watching and learning. The insults would continue, and humans would endure them. For now, Jake returned to his observation post and looked at the holographic display. The galaxy was vast and full of species that considered themselves superior to humanity. They had thousands of years of history and technology. They had empires spanning hundreds of star systems, but they had one critical weakness. They thought they knew everything. They thought they had nothing to fear from the quiet species on that insignificant blue planet. They were going to learn how wrong they were. Jake smiled grimly as he watched the alien ships move through space. "Keep talking," he whispered to the display. "Keep underestimating us. We're listening to every word, and when the time comes, we'll remind you that silence doesn't mean weakness. It means we're planning something you can't even imagine." Captain Helen Brooks sat in the command chair of the CSS Shadow, watching her screens with practiced attention. The Shadow was humanity's most advanced stealth ship, invisible to every sensor the Galactic Council possessed. For the past 6 months, Helen and her crew had been positioned near Zentara Prime, the Council's capital world, recording everything that happened in the massive orbital station above it. Today was going to be interesting. The Council was holding a major session about primitive worlds and resource allocation. Earth was on the agenda. "Captain, the session is starting," said Danny Wright, the young analyst stationed at the communications console. Danny was barely 25 years old, but he had learned 6 alien languages and could translate Council communications faster than anyone else in the fleet. Helen leaned forward. "Put it on the main screen." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the interior of the Council chambers. Hundreds of aliens filled the massive room, seated in sections organized by species and political alliance. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform where the High Chancellor presided over the proceedings. High Chancellor Mordain was a tall, elegant creature with blue skin and 4 arms. His species, the Zentari, had founded the Galactic Council over 50,000 years ago. They considered themselves the most civilized species in the galaxy, and they treated younger species with barely concealed contempt. "The session will now address the matter of primitive world protections and resource rights," Mordain announced. His voice translated instantly by the Shadow's computers. An alien stepped forward from the reptilian section. Helen recognized him immediately. Ambassador Vexthor, representative of the Saurian Empire. Vexthor was known throughout the Council as a hardliner who believed primitive species should be conquered or exploited, not protected. "Honorable Council members," Vexthor began, his forked tongue flickering between words. "I come before you today to discuss the outdated protection policies that prevent us from accessing valuable resources. There are dozens of worlds in this galaxy that are listed as protected because they contain primitive life forms. These protections waste the Council's time and deny us access to materials we need." Murmurs of agreement rippled through several sections of the chamber. Vexthor continued, "I propose that we review the protection status of several worlds, starting with the planet designated as Earth. This world is located in a resource-rich system, yet we cannot access it because of protections granted to the barely sentient creatures living there." Helen felt her blood run cold. Danny looked back at her from his console, his face pale. "Barely sentient?" Mordain asked, sounding amused. Ambassador Vexthor, that seems harsh. The species on Earth have developed basic technology. They have primitive computers and simple spacecraft. Vexthor made a hissing sound that might have been laughter. Exactly, Chancellor. Basic technology. They are clever animals at best. My people have been observing their broadcasts for years. They fight wars over insignificant resources. They destroy their own environment. They cannot even unite their species under a single government. They are not worthy of council protection. More murmurs of agreement. Helen watched in growing anger as other council members nodded along with Vexthor's words. Another alien stood up, this one from a species Helen didn't recognize. I have reviewed the cultural broadcasts from Earth, the alien said. Their entertainment is primitive. Their music is simplistic noise. Their art shows no understanding of higher dimensional aesthetics. I agree with Ambassador Vexthor. These creatures are not developing toward civilization. They are trapped in an evolutionary dead end. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Actual laughter at humanity's culture and achievements. Danny's hands were shaking as he recorded everything. Captain, are you seeing this? I'm seeing it, Helen said quietly, her voice tight with controlled fury. High Chancellor Mordain held up one of his 4 hands, calling for silence. Ambassador Vexthor, your proposal is noted. However, removing protection status is not a simple matter. What do you propose we do with Earth? Vexthor's reptilian eyes gleamed. I propose we reclassify Earth as a biological reserve. We can maintain minimal protections for the native species, while allowing controlled resource extraction from their system. The creatures themselves need never know we are there. They lack the technology to detect our operations. A biological reserve, Mordain repeated thoughtfully. You would treat them like animals in a zoo. Because that is what they are, Chancellor. That insignificant breeding ground of barely evolved primates has nothing to offer the galaxy, except the resources in their asteroid belt and outer planets. Let us take what we need and leave the creatures to their primitive existence on their little blue world. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members argued in favor of the proposal. Others raised concerns about the ethics of stripping a planet's protection status. But Helen noticed that no one defended humanity. No one spoke up to say that humans deserved respect or consideration. They were arguing about rules and procedures, not about whether Vexthor's assessment of humanity was correct, because they all agreed with him. They all saw humans as primitive, barely intelligent creatures. Danny suddenly straightened at his console. Captain, they're broadcasting this session on the Galactic network. This isn't a closed meeting. Every species in the council is watching this right now. Helen closed her eyes briefly. So humanity is being insulted and humiliated in front of 847 civilizations. Yes, ma'am. The debate continued for hours. Helen and her crew recorded every word, every insult, every dismissive comment. They documented council members joking about human appearance, mocking human customs, and questioning whether humans could even be considered intelligent life by council standards. One particularly offensive moment came when a council scientist presented data about human biology. Note the primitive nature of their sensory organs, the scientist said, displaying images of human anatomy. They can only perceive 3 dimensions. Their visual spectrum is extremely limited. Their brains are small compared to most council species. Frankly, I am surprised they managed to develop basic tool use. More laughter. More casual cruelty. Finally, after 6 hours of debate, High Chancellor Mordain called for a vote. All those in favor of reviewing Earth's protection status and considering reclassification as a biological reserve. 2/3 of the council voted in favor. The motion passes, Mordain announced. A committee will be formed to study the matter and present recommendations within 1 standard year. This session is adjourned. The holographic display went dark. Helen sat in her command chair staring at the empty screen. Her crew was silent, processing what they had just witnessed. Danny finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. They're going to take our system. They're going to strip mine our asteroid belt and treat us like animals in a zoo. Helen activated her communications console. Not if we have anything to say about it. Send everything we recorded to Earth Command. Priority 1 encryption, and include my personal recommendation. What recommendation, Captain? Helen looked at her young analyst, and Danny saw something dangerous in her eyes. That it's time to stop being silent. It's time to show these arrogant bastards exactly what humanity is capable of. As the CSS Shadow began transmitting its recorded data back to Earth, millions of light years away, Helen thought about all the years humanity had spent watching and waiting, all the insults they had endured in silence, all the contempt they had swallowed without response. That was about to end. The Galactic Council had made a critical mistake. They had assumed human silence meant acceptance. They had assumed that because humans didn't speak, humans couldn't speak. They had assumed that a species that stayed hidden was a species that was afraid. They were going to learn the difference between patience and weakness, and Helen suspected it was going to be a lesson they would never forget. General Peter Hammond walked through the massive underground facility, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. Above him, hidden behind layers of rock and advanced stealth technology, was the surface of the moon. Below him, stretching for miles in every direction, was humanity's greatest secret, the Nightfall Protocol. Dr. Nina Rodriguez waited for him at the observation window. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, but her mind was one of the brightest humanity had ever produced. For 20 years, Nina had led Project Ascension, the scientific program that had transformed humanity from a primitive species into something the Galactic Council would never expect. "General," she greeted him with a tired smile. "I heard about the council session. I assume that's why you're here." Peter nodded grimly. "The transmission from Captain Brooks arrived this morning. The entire government has seen it. The insults, the contempt, the vote to strip our protection status." He paused, looking out the observation window at the massive construction bay beyond. "It's time, Nina. Time to stop hiding." Nina followed his gaze. In the bay, a massive warship was being fitted with its final systems. The ship was sleek and dark, covered in armor plating that could absorb almost any weapon the Council possessed. It was one of 300 such ships humanity had built in secret over the past 30 years. "The EDS Defiance," Nina said softly, "our first Dreadnought-class vessel. When I started this project, I never imagined we would actually need to use these ships." "None of us did," Peter replied. "We hoped the Council would be peaceful, that they would welcome new species. We were wrong." Nina pressed a button and the observation window's display changed, showing a timeline of humanity's secret development program. "Let me show you what we've accomplished, General. Not for my benefit, but because you need to understand just how far we've come before you present this to the politicians." The display showed the beginning. 30 years ago, when the first alien probe had crashed in the Pacific Ocean, human scientists had recovered it and begun the painstaking process of understanding its technology. The probe was damaged, Nina explained, but it contained enough information to change everything. We learned about quantum drives that could bend space, energy shields that could stop projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed, plasma weapons that could cut through solid steel like butter. "And you reverse-engineered all of it," Peter said. "Not exactly," Nina smiled. "Reverse engineering implies we copied their designs. We did something better. We understood the principles behind their technology, and then improved on it. Human creativity, General. That's what the Council doesn't understand about us. We don't just copy. We innovate." She pulled up schematics of a human quantum drive. Next to it, she displayed the alien version they had studied. The differences were obvious even to Peter's untrained eye. "The alien drive was efficient but predictable," Nina said. "Ours is 30% faster and leaves almost no detectable signature. They'll never see us coming until we're right on top of them." Peter felt a grim satisfaction. "What about weapons?" Nina's expression turned serious. "This is where we really diverged from Council technology. Their weapons are powerful but straightforward. Plasma cannons, particle beams, kinetic missiles, all based on brute force. We took a different approach." The display changed, showing a weapon system Peter didn't recognize. It looked like a series of overlapping fields rather than a traditional gun. "We call it a phase disruptor," Nina explained. "It doesn't destroy enemy shields. It makes the shields think nothing is there, so projectiles pass right through. We've also developed quantum-entangled missiles that can't be intercepted because they don't travel through normal space. And my personal favorite, EMP weapons specifically designed to shut down Council computer systems without affecting our own." Peter whistled softly. "You've been busy." "We had 30 years and unlimited funding," Nina said, "plus motivation. Every time we intercepted another transmission calling us primitive, it pushed us to work harder." She led him through the facility, showing him more of humanity's achievements. Manufacturing centers that could build ship components faster than any council factory. AI systems that could coordinate fleet movements with perfect precision. Medical technology that could heal injuries the council considered fatal. They reached the main hangar, where Commander Ryan Foster was conducting a pre-flight inspection of the EDS Defiance. Ryan was young for a ship commander, only 32, but he had trained his entire adult life for this moment. He had been born the year the alien probe arrived. He had grown up knowing that humanity was preparing for something big. "Commander Foster," Peter called out. Ryan turned and saluted. "General Hammond, Dr. Rodriguez, perfect timing. I was just about to start the final systems check." "How does she handle?" Peter asked. Ryan's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Sir, this ship is incredible. The quantum drive can make the jump from Earth to the Galactic Council's capital in 3 days. That's half the time it takes their fastest ships. The weapon systems are integrated with AI targeting that doesn't miss, and the stealth capabilities mean we can appear and disappear at will. Can we take on Council ships in a fight?" Ryan considered the question carefully. "One-on-one, we would destroy any Council vessel. Our technology is simply better. The question is whether we can handle their numbers. They have thousands of ships. We have 300, Nina interrupted. But those 300 ships are worth 10 Council ships each based on our simulations. And they don't know about our capabilities. Surprise is a weapon all by itself." Peter nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand the full scope of what humanity had built. This wasn't just a defense fleet. This was a statement. A declaration that humans were not primitive creatures to be dismissed and mocked. They moved to the command center, where Senator Maria Collins was waiting. Maria was the chair of the government's oversight committee, one of the few politicians who had known about the Nightfall Protocol from the beginning. "General," she said, standing to shake his hand, "I've reviewed the transmission from the council session. The president wants to move forward with the reveal." Peter felt his heart rate increase. "Are we authorizing full deployment?" "Not yet," Maria said. "But we're authorizing Phase 1. We show them the fleet. We announce our presence. We demand a seat at their table. If they refuse or threaten us, then we move to Phase 2. And Phase 2 is?" Maria's expression was cold. "We remind them why you should never underestimate a species that has survived ice ages, world wars, and planetary catastrophes. We show them what happens when you insult humans for 30 years, and then threaten to strip mine their home system." Nina pulled up a holographic display of the entire Nightfall fleet. 300 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and determination. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts, all built in secret, all waiting for this moment. "The council thinks we're clever animals," Peter said quietly. "They think we're primitive creatures who barely understand technology. They're about to get the shock of their lives." Ryan stepped forward. "General, permission to speak freely?" "Granted." "Sir, I've been thinking about what we're going to say to them. When we reveal ourselves, when we show them the fleet, what's our message?" Peter smiled grimly. "Our message is simple, Commander. We've been listening. We've been watching. We've heard every insult, documented every dismissive comment, recorded every joke at humanity's expense. We stayed silent because we were preparing. Now we're ready, and they're going to learn that the most dangerous species in the galaxy isn't the one that roars the loudest. It's the one that stays quiet while it sharpens its teeth," Nina added. "We're also going to show them something they've forgotten after 50,000 years of controlling the galaxy. Innovation, adaptability, the ability to take their own technology and make it better. That's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, and we overcome." Maria pulled up the schedule. "The fleet will deploy in 1 week. Ambassador Kate Murphy has been preparing for this her entire career. She'll deliver our message to the council while our ships take position around their capital. They'll see our strength. They'll hear our demands. And then we'll see if they're smart enough to accept us as equals." Peter looked at the holographic display one more time. 300 ships glowing like stars in the darkness. Each one represented years of work, billions of dollars, and the hopes of an entire species. 30 years, he said softly. 30 years of silence. 30 years of planning. It all comes down to this moment. Nina put a hand on his shoulder. "We're ready, Peter. Humanity is ready. Let's show the galaxy what we're really made of." The Galactic Council was in session when reality changed. High Chancellor Mordain was discussing trade agreements with the outer colonies, his forearms gesturing elegantly as he spoke. Ambassador Vexthor sat in the reptilian section, looking bored. The chamber was half empty, as it usually was for routine sessions. Most council members only attended when something important was being discussed. Then every alarm in the station started screaming at once. Mordain stopped speaking mid-sentence. Security officers rushed into the chamber, their expressions panicked. The main display screen flickered to life, showing the space around Zentara Prime. 50 warships had appeared out of nowhere. They hung in space like dark predators, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They were larger than most council vessels, sleek and dangerous looking, and they had appeared simultaneously without any warning, without any sensor detecting their approach. "What is this?" Mordain demanded. "Where did these ships come from?" The head of station security looked terrified. "Chancellor, we don't know. They just appeared. Our sensors showed nothing, and then suddenly they were there. We're reading energy signatures we've never seen before. Their technology is not in any of our databases." Vexthor stood up, his reptilian eyes fixed on the display. "Impossible. Every species in the galaxy is catalogued. Every technology is known to us. These ships must be from somewhere in our own territory." "They're not, Ambassador," the security officer said. "We've analyzed their hull configurations and power signatures. This is completely new technology." Mordain's skin had turned a darker shade of blue, a sign of stress in his species. "Have they communicated with us?" "Not yet, Chancellor. They're just holding position, waiting." The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members were shouting questions, demanding explanations, calling for military response. Some of the more paranoid species were already suggesting this was an invasion force. Then every screen in the council chamber changed. The diplomatic channels, the security monitors, even the personal devices of council members, all showed the same image, a human face. President Andrew Sherman looked directly into the cameras with calm, steady eyes. He was an older man with gray hair and a strong jaw. Behind him stood a woman in formal diplomatic attire. The room they were in was clearly official, with flags and symbols of Earth government visible in the background. "Greetings to the Galactic Council," Sherman said, speaking in perfect Galactic common. His accent was flawless, his grammar precise. "My name is Andrew Sherman, and I am the elected leader of the human species from the planet Earth. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but given your council's low opinion of humanity, we felt it necessary to capture your attention." Dead silence filled the chamber. Every alien present stared at the screens in shock. Sherman continued, his voice measured and calm. "For 30 years, humanity has observed your council from a distance. We have listened to your transmissions. We have learned your languages. We have studied your technology and your politics, and we have heard every single word you have said about us." The display changed. Now it showed recordings from the council chamber itself. Ambassador Vexthor's voice filled the room. "They are clever animals at best." Then another voice. "Their culture is primitive noise." Then Mordain's own words. "That insignificant breeding ground of barely evolved primates." Sherman let the recordings play for nearly a minute. A carefully edited compilation of 30 years of insults and contempt. When the recordings ended, his face returned to the screen. "I could play these recordings for hours," Sherman said. "We have documented every dismissive comment, every joke at humanity's expense, every suggestion that we are somehow less than you. But I think you understand the point. You believed we were primitive. You believed we were unintelligent. You were wrong." Fleet Admiral Greg Turner appeared on the screen next to Sherman. "The 50 warships currently surrounding your capital are just a small portion of Earth's military capability. Each ship is equipped with technology that exceeds anything in your current databases. We can appear and disappear at will. Our weapons can bypass your shields. Our sensors can track your movements from distances you would consider impossible." Sherman raised a hand. "However, we are not here to threaten you. We are here to demand what should have been offered to us decades ago: respect, recognition, and a permanent seat on this council." The screen changed again. Now it showed Ambassador Kate Murphy, a tall woman in her 40s with sharp intelligence in her eyes. "I am Kate Murphy, Earth's diplomatic representative. In 10 minutes, I will arrive at the council chambers to formally present humanity's request for admission. I expect to be received with all proper diplomatic protocols. I expect humanity to be treated as equals, and I expect this council to finally acknowledge that you were wrong about us." The transmission ended, The screens returned to their normal displays. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment, every member processing what had just happened. Then chaos erupted again. But this time it was different. This time it was fear. Vexthor was the first to speak, his voice sharp with anger. "This is an outrage. An unknown species appears in our space with military vessels and makes demands? We should destroy these ships immediately." "With what?" asked a counselor from the scientific section. "Our sensors can't even properly scan their technology. They appeared without warning. What makes you think we could target them before they disappear again?" Morden held up his hands for silence. His political mind was already working through the implications. "Security, what is the status of our defense fleet?" "Moving to intercept positions, Chancellor. But our tactical analysis suggests that if these human ships are as advanced as they claim, our fleet would be at a severe disadvantage." Another counselor stood up. "Chancellor, we need to verify their claims. We need to understand how a protected primitive world could have developed such technology without our knowledge." "I can answer that," said a new voice. Ambassador Kate Murphy stood at the chamber entrance, flanked by 2 human security officers. She had arrived exactly 10 minutes after Sherman's broadcast, as promised. She walked into the chamber with confident strides, completely unintimidated by the hundreds of alien eyes watching her. She reached the central platform and looked directly at High Chancellor Morden. "Chancellor, I am Ambassador Kate Murphy of Earth. I formally request recognition of humanity as a spacefaring species and admission to the Galactic Council with full voting rights." Morden stared at her. Up close, he could see that humans looked remarkably unremarkable. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. Their appearance was actually quite common in the galaxy. There was nothing about this woman that suggested advanced capability, except for the 50 warships in orbit above his capital. "Ambassador Murphy," Morden said carefully, "your arrival is quite unexpected. Perhaps you could explain how Earth developed such advanced technology without the Council's knowledge." Kate smiled coldly. "By listening, Chancellor. While you discussed us like primitive animals, we were recording every word. While you mocked our culture, we were learning your languages. While you debated turning our system into a biological reserve, we were building a fleet that makes yours look outdated. We stayed silent not because we were primitive, but because we were preparing," Vexthor hissed angrily. "This is impossible. We have observed Earth for decades. Your species has never demonstrated the capability to build such vessels." "You observed what we wanted you to observe," Kate said. "Our shipyards are on the dark side of our moon and throughout our asteroid belt. We use stealth technology derived from your own probe designs. You never saw us because we made sure you didn't." She activated a holographic projector and images filled the air above the central platform. Detailed schematics of human technology, comparison charts showing human capabilities versus Council capabilities, and most damning of all, recordings of Council sessions where Earth's fate was being casually discussed. "For 30 years, this Council has insulted humanity. You have called us primitive, unintelligent, and worthless. You voted to strip our protection status and turn our home system into a resource extraction zone. You did all of this while assuming we would never know, never understand, and never be able to respond." Kate's voice grew harder. "You were wrong on every count. We know exactly what you think of us because we've been listening. We understand your technology because we've been studying it. And we can respond with a military force that your tactical analysts are currently realizing they cannot defeat." She pulled up more data, this time showing Council corruption and treaty violations that human intelligence had uncovered. "Furthermore, our observation of this Council has revealed numerous violations of your own laws. Species being exploited in violation of protection protocols, resources being stolen from developing worlds, political corruption at the highest levels. We have documented everything." The chamber was deathly quiet now. Every Council member was realizing the same thing. This primitive species had been watching them for 3 decades. These clever animals had seen all their dirty secrets. These barely evolved primates had built technology that exceeded their own. Kate delivered her final statement with cold precision. "Earth demands." 6 months had passed since humanity's dramatic entrance onto the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador Kate Murphy stood at her office window in the Council station, looking out at the steady flow of ships moving through space. Human ships now moved freely among the alien vessels, no longer hiding in the shadows. The sight still filled her with quiet satisfaction. The first week after Earth's revelation had been tense. The Council had argued, threatened, and tried to find ways to refuse humanity's demands. But in the end, they had no choice. Earth's fleet was too powerful to fight. Earth's intelligence about Council corruption was too detailed to ignore. And, most importantly, several younger species had already begun sending secret messages to Earth, asking for protection and alliance. The Council had granted Earth a permanent seat with full voting rights. They had issued formal apologies, though those apologies were grudging and cold. They had even agreed to implement new protocols protecting developing worlds from exploitation. It was more than humanity had dared to hope for. A chime at her door interrupted Kate's thoughts. "Come in," she called. Commander Ryan Foster entered, now wearing the insignia of a fleet captain. His promotion had come quickly once humanity joined the Council. The younger species wanted human protection, and that required more ships and more commanders. "Ambassador Murphy," Ryan said with a slight smile, "I have the latest reports from the joint patrol operations." Kate gestured to a chair. "How are things going with our new allies?" Ryan sat down and pulled up a holographic display. "Better than expected, actually. We've been running joint operations with the Kalar, the Vryn, and the Toral. All three species are what the Council used to call developing worlds. The Council was extracting resources from their systems without proper compensation. And now? Now we've put a stop to it. Last week we intercepted a Council mining operation in Kalar space. They didn't have proper authorization, so we escorted them out of the system. The Kalar government was very grateful." Kate nodded approvingly. "Good. What about the Council's response?" Ryan's smile grew wider. "That's the interesting part. The Council species involved in the illegal mining didn't file a complaint. They know that if they make an official protest, we'll present all the evidence of their violations to the entire Council. They're afraid of us, Ambassador. Afraid of what we know and what we might reveal. Fear is a tool," Kate said quietly, "but not one we should rely on too heavily. We need them to respect us, not just fear us." "I think we're getting there," Ryan said. "The joint operations are helping. The Kalar pilots are impressed with our technology. The Vryn engineers want to learn our manufacturing techniques. The Toral scientists are fascinated by our approach to physics. We're becoming known for innovation, not just military strength." Kate looked back out the window. That's what we always were. Innovative, adaptable, creative. The Council just couldn't see it because they assumed primitive meant stupid. There was a knock at the door and Dr. Lisa Bennett entered. Lisa had left her position with Earth's intelligence service to become the director of the new cultural exchange program. She looked much happier than she had during those long years of translating Council insults. "Kate, Ryan." She greeted them warmly. "I wanted to update you on the embassy situation." "Please," Kate said, gesturing to another chair. Lisa pulled up her own holographic display, showing a building on Earth's surface. "The first alien embassy opened in New Geneva last week. We have representatives from 6 species now, with more requesting permission to establish diplomatic presence. The Zentari even sent a delegation, though I suspect that was mainly to spy on our technology." Ryan laughed. "Let them spy. They won't be able to replicate what we do. They're too set in their ways, too convinced their methods are the only methods." "That's actually what I wanted to discuss," Lisa said. "I've been analyzing cultural broadcasts from around the galaxy. Human music, films, and literature are becoming popular, especially among the younger species. There's a growing movement of what they're calling New Thought species, who are questioning the Council's traditional approach to everything." Kate raised an eyebrow. "Are we starting a cultural revolution?" "Maybe," Lisa admitted. "The Council has been static for thousands of years. They do things the way they've always done them. But humans do things differently. We experiment. We take risks. We combine ideas in ways the Council species never considered, and the younger species are noticing." Ryan leaned forward. "Is that going to cause problems?" "It already is," Lisa said. "There are conservative Council members who blame humans for disrupting galactic stability. They say we're corrupting younger species with dangerous ideas about innovation and change." Kate considered this carefully. "Let them complain. Change is exactly what this galaxy needs. The Council has been stagnant for so long that they forgot how to grow. We're reminding them." A communication alert interrupted their discussion. Kate activated her console, and High Chancellor Mordane's image appeared. Ambassador Murphy, the Chancellor said formally, I am calling to inform you that the Council has completed its review of the protection protocols you requested. We have implemented new guidelines that will prevent the exploitation of developing worlds. Kate kept her expression neutral. That's good news, Chancellor. May I see the details? Mordain transmitted the document, and Kate quickly scanned through it. The new protocols were actually quite comprehensive. Developing worlds would have stronger protections. Resource extraction would require explicit permission from native governments. Cultural interference would be strictly limited. It was everything Earth had demanded. This is acceptable, Kate said. Humanity appreciates the Council's cooperation on this matter. Mordain's expression was difficult to read, but Kate thought she detected a hint of grudging respect. Ambassador, there is another matter I wish to discuss. Several Council members have raised concerns about Earth's growing influence among younger species. They believe you are building a rival power block within the Council. Kate smiled slightly. Chancellor, Earth is simply offering friendship and protection to species that have been overlooked or exploited by the traditional Council powers. If that creates a power block, perhaps the Council should consider why so many species prefer to align with us, rather than with you. There was a long pause. Then Mordain said something Kate had never expected to hear from him. You are correct, Ambassador. The Council has made mistakes. We have been arrogant. We have assumed that our age and experience made us superior to younger species. Earth has proven us wrong, and it is a lesson we needed to learn. Kate was careful not to show her surprise. I'm glad you see it that way, Chancellor. However, Mordain continued, I would encourage you to remember that while Earth has impressive technology and military strength, you are still one species among hundreds. Power must be wielded with wisdom, not just capability. I couldn't agree more, Kate said sincerely. That's why we're focusing on building alliances and reforming corrupt systems rather than simply imposing our will. We learned a lot by watching the Council for 30 years, Chancellor. We saw what worked and what didn't. We saw the mistakes that come from assuming power equals wisdom. After the call ended, Ryan whistled softly. Did the High Chancellor just admit the Council was wrong? He did, Kate said. And that's a bigger victory than any military confrontation would have been. We've changed the way they think about themselves and about younger species. Lisa pulled up a news feed from across the galaxy. You should see this. Earth is being featured in major media across Council space. They're calling us the species that changed the galaxy in 6 months. Kate watched the news reports with interest. Some were positive, praising human innovation and courage. Others were negative, warning about human ambition and unpredictability. But all of them treated humanity with respect. No one was calling humans primitive anymore. No one was suggesting they were clever animals. They had earned their place among the stars. Jake Morrison entered the office next, though he was no longer Commander Morrison. He had retired from military service and now taught at the new Interstellar Academy on Earth, training the next generation of human diplomats and officers. Ambassador, Jake said with a warm smile, I wanted to bring you something. He handed her a data chip. Kate loaded it into her console and found herself looking at a compilation of messages. Thousands of messages, all from different alien species. Some were from governments formally thanking Earth for standing up to Council corruption. Others were from individuals, expressing admiration for human culture or asking questions about Earth's philosophy. These started arriving after your first speech to the Council, Jake explained. At first it was just a few messages, but now we're getting thousands per day. Species all over the galaxy want to know more about humanity. They want to understand how we went from a protected primitive world to a Council power in just 30 years. Kate scrolled through the messages, feeling an unexpected emotion. Pride, yes, but also responsibility. We've become a symbol, she said softly. A symbol of what's possible when you refuse to accept limits placed on you by others. That's exactly right, Jake said. And it's a powerful symbol. There are hundreds of developing worlds in this galaxy that have been told they're too primitive, too young.